Latin America is a vibrant region of the world with a variety of cultures and history. From the bustling streets of Mexico City to the lush rainforest of the Amazon, Latin America is a region of beauty and rich diversity. But what many don't know is that in recent years, parts of Latin America have become a global leader in the development and implementation of real-time payments. But why has the region embraced real-time payments, and what effect has this had on the economy, culture, and everyday life of the people who live there? The adoption of real-time payments across LATAM is growing at a rapid pace.
South and Central America is the fastest growing region in our analysis, with a compound annual growth rate across the region of 29% 2022 to 2027 in terms of volume of transactions. It also has the second highest share of real-time payments in overall electronic payments in 2022, with a almost 33% share. Almost 1 in 3 transactions in the region is real-time at present.
But the adoption rate varies enormously, with Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Peru advancing at pace, while some are still in the very early stages of development or are still to get out of the starting blocks.
When you take a look at landscape of instant payments in Latin, we basically have different types of development and also adoption here. Meaning that some countries are really ahead, is tipped up the spear of this kind of implementation here in Latin America, and then a few others are still in design phase and still trying to figure out the best way to deploy a system that makes sense to the population itself.
It's a concerted effort on the part of central banks and governments to open up the market to private players of all sizes, supported by modernized regulatory frameworks that is creating the conditions for the growth of real-time payments.
So who are the big players driving real-time in Latin America? I think really there it's all about financial inclusion. Many citizens have limited or no access to traditional banking systems. And so what we see are the new players coming in, democratizing payments, if you like, allowing small businesses to flourish.
The standout performer in the LATAM region is Brazil with the PIX scheme.
So the biggest driving force behind the strength of the Latin American market is Brazil with the PIX scheme. Brazil can certainly be seen as a case study, not only regionally but also globally in terms of the implementation of a real-time payment system.
Brazil's PIX scheme was launched in 2019, and its huge growth is seen as due to a combination of factors aligning simultaneously, particularly strong leadership from the central bank and a tech-savvy population.
We saw a huge growth phase in 2021 where we hit 500% year-on-year growth in terms of number of transactions in that year, which was due to a combination of a strong government push for the scheme, a wide variety of use cases, an implementation of the scheme where it could partner with mobile services already in the market, as well as a strong consumer uptake due to the conditions around the pandemic at the time.
Outside of Brazil, the picture is very different. Mexico has a historical head start over its neighbors with the launch of CODI nearly 2 decades ago.
Other markets in Latin America are much smaller than Brazil in general, with Mexico being the next largest. Its system is much older than PIX, having launched in 2004, but the growth curve we observe is much less extreme than that in Brazil, and that's largely due to the lack of the same factors around sort of how it has been developed.
In 2019, Mexico added an overlay service called CODI, running on the existing SPEI rails. CODI lets users make purchases via a wire transfer from their bank account. The user either scans a merchant's QR code or uses an NFC-enabled terminal, and then authorizes the payment via their mobile phone. And crucially, transactions are free of charge. We're also seeing encouraging growth rates of real-time payment usage in a handful of other LATAM nations. But these growth rates are often masking the fact that this growth is coming off a very low level.
Looking at other markets in Latin America, Chile, Colombia, Peru stand out as countries that are really in the infancy of real-time payments. We haven't seen any high level of adoption, even to the level of Mexico, where these markets have a lot of potential to grow. Right now, we're seeing high compound annual growth rates in the 40% range for some of these markets, but they're growing from such a small base that this is not going to make a huge impact on the overall regional level.
But as we've seen in other parts of the world, being behind the curve often represents a huge opportunity for countries to take advantage of industry innovations and replace legacy systems with more efficient real-time payment technology.
Whereas we talk about other markets such as Chile and Colombia, these markets right now, we're not looking at huge kind of growth in terms of real time and huge adoption yet, but in terms of the potential to grow, these markets are big.
Where we might expect a seamless shift from electronic payments to real time, what we are witnessing today is a tendency for countries with high cash usage rates transitioning to real-time payments faster than those that are already well down the digital path.
We're looking at high levels of paper use in these markets in terms of 43.6% in Chile in 2022, forecast to decrease to 30.6% in 2027. That share is very easily eroded by a system like real-time payments, whereas getting consumers off an existing means of electronic payment is much harder, as evidenced by the kind of growth curves we see in Europe and North America, instead of the markets where cash can be directly moved to real time and cards are leapfrogged in the process. Wherever we've seen leapfrogging of cards, which is a major limiting factor in markets like Europe and North America, we see that confluence of real-time payments around the mobile as a form factor.
So what's next for real-time payments in Latin America? It's about addressing the big societal issue in many of these countries, the exclusion of large parts of the population from the banking system, increasing access to payment systems that in turn will boost the economies of these countries, particularly in the e-commerce arena.
A lot of the regional growth in the South and Central American region is about cannibalizing cash use in the market. Regionally, in 2022, cash accounts for 66% share of total payments volume, which we're forecasting to decline to 48% in 2027 as markets like Mexico, Chile, Colombia, and Brazil start moving from cash-based payments predominantly to electronic and increasingly to real-time.
But I really do see real-time payments becoming integral to the ecosystem in each market and being this huge wave of innovation, helping fintechs, helping governments, helping banks to really leapfrog some of the legacy solutions that we've seen in other markets.
Much of the responsibility lies with those governments and respective central banks. If they are committed to modernizing the payment landscape, then preparing the ground, particularly in terms of the regulatory environment and making investors and new players welcome, is vital.
So in terms of driving that wave of adoption, particularly for the central operator, I think the key is, first of all, having a good infrastructure, something that is able to support innovation, that helps the banks really bring new solutions to market, as well as helping new fintechs and new entrants.
Another step that can be taken is for governments to adopt the new rails themselves. By leading by example and adopting real-time payment rails for their own use, they send a powerful message by demonstrating that crucial public vote of confidence in the technology.
I think secondly, it's about harnessing the national agenda and having real-time as part of that. So for example, we've seen in other regions, so in Asia, for example, where some countries have really accelerated the speed of adoption of real-time and of democratization of reach of some of these very modern technologies by taking some of the, for example, legacy payments, pensions and subsidies and rapidly moving into the real time.